In this session, we're going to have a few papers about using machine learning and reasoning about players. The first paper is by Matthew Gosdile, Nicholas Lau, and Mark Riddell. And you can look, thank you. Talking about player experience extraction from gameplay video. And they've also had their artifact evaluated. So if you want to check out their code, if you want to check out their code, you can find
there's a
that.
data set too, but yeah.
Thanks. Hi, yes, I'm Matthew Gosdile, and I just want to make explicit that I am in fact the second author on this. Sajid Wu, who's one of my undergraduate students, did like all the work, and in a just world he would be here, but timing and resources didn't quite work out. So this is entitled Player Experience Extraction from Gameplay Video. So what does that mean? What do we mean by player experience? What we mean is a representation of the player's actions and the events that they experience. Typically, this is represented as game logs. So most games have logging systems, or at least most like professional games, and they're sort of like the default representation people use when they're talking about player experience. Many game AI applications require some representation of player experience. I think many people in this room have used game logs in some way or another, like player modeling, experience management, game data science, automatic gameplay commentary, etc., etc., etc. If you need some notion of what the player is doing or what lots of players have done, you need some representation of player experience. But there's some problems. Game log access is typically only limited, or is typically limited to only the developers of that game in question. Now, sometimes industry people will share like some data with a particular researcher, but generally that's not the case. And even if you have a logging system, this doesn't help you in the case of like, oh, I want to automatically figure out what people on the internet, on YouTube, and on Twitch are seeing in my game. I want to understand their experience. So the solutions thus far, especially in game AI, have been to either develop and run human subject studies in just open games. Many of you may be familiar with Infinite Mario Brothers. There's been a lot of like player modeling and the like work in that. Or to hand transcribe player experience, and as you can see from this lovely visualization, that tends to be a fairly frustrating thing. So our proposal is instead let's try generating game logs from gameplay video. The way this is going to work is we're going to feed in frames from a particular game, and instead of predicting a sort of class, as mostly used for convolutional neural nets, we're instead going to predict elements of a game log, say what events are currently active in this frame of the video. So let's think of a hypothetical situation here. So let's say that you're the developer of a Mario-like game called Wario. Let's say that you have a game logging system. All right, so you're good, right? You can do all kinds of cool research. But you have a video of people playing the game, say on YouTube or Twitch, for which you don't have the game logs. So that's not great. So to be able to solve this problem, you have what we call the paired approach, where what we're going to do is we're going to train some convolutional neural net, in this case AIIDE, on game frames and game logs when you have both. And then we're going to test on the gameplay video when you don't have the associated game logs. So in order to get that player representation of player experience. So we're going to use a games for the purpose clone of Mario called Wario. It has events like player jumping, player collects power-up, player shoots an enemy. And what happens is we take in a gameplay video, we're going to parse it out into individual frames, pass those through AIIDE, which will then predict of the 30 possible events, which of them is currently active. We're going to have some baselines because we're doing science here. So we're going to have a random forest, which is going to be a 10-tree random forest with a max depth of 100 to encourage generality. Random, we're going to randomly choose between the 30 possible events or nothing. And then no event, where we're always just going to predict no event. That's pretty straightforward. So we ran a 5-fold cross-validation on 3,500 frames of people playing Wario. And these were the results in terms of the accuracy of the event. So 100 would be maximum, higher is better, and 0 would be predicting absolutely nothing. So AIIDE does the best. It does about 10% better than random forest on average. But notably, predicting no event actually does better than predicting the random forest, or the random forest classifier. The reason there is that this was a games for the purpose game, and so there's a lot of standing around while the player thinks about what to do next. And in many kinds of games, like puzzle games, for example, there's going to be a lot of nothing happening while the player is thinking. So this is going pretty strong baseline. And random is bad because it's random. So when is this kind of thing useful? Well, when you have a large amount of footage to be tagged, when your game has a logging system, or you have the resources to create a training data set initially, and when about 5% error rate is acceptable. So that's not always going to be the case, but for things like data science, where you're going to be parsing a large amount of footage and then sort of drawing larger generalizations, maybe it's okay. When does it not work? Well, the inverse. When you don't have a lot of footage, when you don't have game logs for training, and when you need an exact representation of the player experience for things like experience management. All right, second hypothetical scenario. Let's say you now want a video to log model for another game, like the original Mega Man. Problems, you don't have any game logs for it. So you could maybe go and like hand tag some data, but you don't want to tag a lot because it would not be great. So you can't just train from scratch. But you do have the game logs for Wario. And there's some similarities here, like player killing enemy in Mega Man is very similar to player shooting enemy in Wario. So what we're going to use is something called transfer learning. Particularly, we're going to be using a student-teacher variant of transfer learning, where essentially we're going to replicate the weights of the model and then retrain on our new domain. The idea here is that features from domain 1, aka Wario, can be reused or adapted for domain 2, aka Mega Man. And then we can, this is going to tend to require far less training data as well. So what we did was we hand tagged 1,000 frames of Mega Man with 5 events, just 5, so because that would have taken a long time if we'd done anything else. So things like player moving right, player jumping, player killing enemy, and player collecting power-up. This is about 1/3 of the amount of data we had from the last study, so we can see how that works out. We have a little bit of different baselines. Random and no event are the same, but domain adaptation is a different kind of transfer approach. We're instead going to train on both domains simultaneously. So both our Wario data and our Mega Man data. So here's the results of a 80-20 train test split. As you can see, we dropped by about 15% accuracy overall, which is not great, but we had about 1/3 of the data. We beat out by 1 percentage point domain adaptation, and we beat out no event by about 7%. And random is a little bit better, but that's because there's 5 events instead of 30. So this isn't perfect. It might be helpful to use when you have an existing data set for a game with similar aesthetics. Wario and Mega Man were still fairly different, but there's this issue with like low accuracy that's coming up again. So, final hypothetical situation. What if, we ignore everything else that's happened so far and we say, you know what we need? We need a game logging system for Bethesda's RPG Skyrim. This might make you make this kind of face, given the results so far, but just stick with it. So what if, instead of transferring from existing game, with existing game logs, we transferred from a non-game domain? So on the top of the slide are images taken from Skyrim, and on the bottom are images taken from the UCF 101 dataset, which is a dataset of humans doing activities. And some of these activities are the same as the activities in Skyrim, like archery, or swimming, or horseback riding. And sometimes you horseback through the sky, and that's just what it happens. So here we go. I hit 2 buttons at the same time. So we're going to use the student-teacher or teacher-student approach once again, this time with ResNet 152, so a much larger model. We're going to use 10 player activities that exist in UCF 101, and we're going to find 5-second clips of each activity on YouTube. Those are available now on GitHub. So that's our data set. In terms of baselines, one thing we instead did, we grabbed ImageNet as a sort of source or teacher data set, just to see what the difference was between using ImageNet, which is just images of objects, versus UCF 101, which is video of human activities. And then we're going to use domain adaptation one more time. So here's the results of 50-50, 66-33, and 83-17 trained test splits. 83-17 is a little bit weird, but it just tended to work out better with the data. And in all cases, the student-teacher with UCF 101 does better than the other approaches. Notably though, ImageNet is always within 1 percentage point once it converges, but it's still, we're doing slightly better. And adaptation is generally much worse once we get like a lot of data. Worth noting that even though ImageNet does do within a percentage point of the same quality, UCF 101 does converge just a little bit faster. So there is benefit to using actual human activities to sort of represent in-game activities as a simulation there, but it's not a huge benefit. Just having a large amount of data, that helps. So when is this useful? So we finally hit low error rates. So you can finally use this kind of approach for something where we actually need an accurate representation of player experience. So that's very exciting. So for semi-realistic games, this is going to be helpful. We can transfer from real-world images, so they're close enough, especially at the resolution that will be working. And when it's easy to author or find a target domain training set. So all we had to do for Skyrim was find 10 5-second videos of the 10 activities that we had. So a total of 100 videos. So some limitations. Accessibility is an issue here. Not everyone has access to a GPU or a computer capable of even training ResNet 152, so that's fair. We're going to be working on how to fix that. Non-realistic aesthetics are obviously still a problem, and the pixel cases we were getting like 95 to all the way down to like 80% accuracy, and that's just simply not good enough. So how we actually handle things with a non-realistic aesthetic. And then applications. We just showed a whole bunch of numbers, but we didn't actually show how you can potentially use this technology. But we do think that there's a lot of potential here. So some conclusions. If you ignore the rest of this talk, if you just walked in now, this is the thing to take away. We can apply CNNs and transfer learning to create high-quality video-to-log models to extract player experience representations from gameplay video. Cool. And then this opens the door, we hope, in terms of gaming out research on games that we could not previously use. For things like player modeling and data science, etc. Some quick thanks. I want to say thanks to the NSF for supporting this research. Again, I want to shout out Jin Liu as the primary researcher on this whole project. Also, shout out to Nicholas Lau, who worked on this sort of in early days. Also want to shout out Piro, which is a President Undergraduate Research Award at Tech, which both of these undergrads were awarded while working on this project. So yeah, that's it. Here's the GitHub link if you're interested in that Skyrim data set, and the rest of the code is also linked in the paper, and that's all my stuff. Thanks. Yeah.
Would it be possible to, so I'm entirely new to this area, right? I find that fascinating, by the way, very cool. So would it be possible to look to analyze, say, focusing just on the UI or on sound effects?
Yeah, sure. So obviously, if you just like crop the videos yourself to like only the UI portions, if you can do that, that would be a thing. But otherwise, as long again as you like have a large enough training set, then these things are totally possible. We can talk one-on-one if you like about a particular use if you're thinking about a particular use case. Anybody else? Yeah.
For your second case, do you have a feeling for like how much data you needed to tag to get to an acceptable? I think you said you did about 1/3 the amount of what you had.
Yeah, so if I can go all the way. So for Wario, we had about 3,500 frames, which is really not that much. And we got like off by 5% error basically, which is pretty good. And that was, as far as we could tell, kind of a ceiling that we were going to get. We ended up going with the 1,000 frames here, primarily as a like, oh, we should really check and see if this works at all in the pixel domain. And it turned out that it was really hard because, like, proportionally, this is the same sort of relationship as like the Skyrim to the UCF 101 data set. It's just much harder to do this style of transfer. Anybody else? Yeah, Sam.
So on, again, with this, you said that the no action tended to be a pretty good baseline because there is so many times that there's just no event.
Mm-hmm.
When looking at the models and the things that they've been predicting, is the error that they're getting from predicting event when there's no event, or is it from picking the wrong event when there is actually some event?
Yeah, that's fair. We could have done like a cool all the possible events, and you see like the error, false positives, and negatives and stuff. It's pretty well spread out in terms of where the errors are. It doesn't tend to be just ignoring one of the event types.
Cool.
But yeah. Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
we have talked about, the talk is matrix and tensor factorization-based game content recommender systems, a bottom-up architecture, and a comparative online evaluation, which is a mouthful, but I'm sure it will be
Long time.
wonderful. And that will be presented by Raphael.
It's just teasing.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I tend to be loud sometimes. Okay, we go. So that's okay, right? Yeah. Okay, awesome. So thank you, Sam, for the introduction, and thank you, Matthew, also for the talk. It's actually super interlinked. I mean, the order perfectly matches, because you talked about representation learning, and you were going to see an application of representation learning. So, yeah, so the title of my talk is Matrix and Tensor Factorization-based Game Content Recommender Systems. This work is a joint work with Rahil, who is a developer and my previous master thesis student from Flying Sheep Studios in Germany, and Raj and Christian from Fraunhofer EIS. So I would like to start with talking about choices we make when we play games. I mean, game players face many choices when playing games in general, right? So these choices can be as detailed as, or as like granular as like selecting what character to choose or what raid to choose, or in games like Team Fortress, like what items to choose, or I mean these choices can be also as high level as choosing what game to play, right? And actually all of these choices, I mean there's no doubt that all of these choices have an impact on the gameplay experience. And as we will later see, optimizing these choices or selection of these choices actually can have a positive impact on player engagement and retention. So towards reaching that goal, I'll present today one case study with some algorithmic contribution in terms of representation learning. So the study is about building a conquest recommender system for a single-player hack and slash dungeon crawler game, which is ad-driven, free-to-play. It's a browser game. I don't know if you can read the link on the left, so you can just check it as well. You can play it. Actually, it runs the tensor factorization-based recommender system now. It's a tiny URL, Troll Hunter without the vowels. So, and the game, I mean, we developed the recommender system alongside with the game. And the game is like you as a player, you're a protagonist, actually you just, crawl basically dungeons. So the core loop it starts by just being in a dungeon marketplace. It's called the Troll Market. And then you choose a quest from the NPC master, like there are 3. And then you enter a dungeon, and then you hopefully complete the quest. You might fail, or you might just be bored and leave it. And then you get back to the marketplace and play again and again and again. Of course, like as a developer, you want the players to be playing the whole time. So our case was to optimize the second part here. We want to highlight choosing the quest from the masters. So we would like to actually recommend quests to players that they might like and likely to finish, right? So that they keep playing the game. So one way to realize such a recommender system is to build a rule-based recommender system, right? Or a heuristic-based recommender system. And we know the problems of such systems, right? So the diversity in human behavior right? So it actually results in an intricate, expensive, and difficult to tune system. So as a data science solution, so ours, model was the vector space model. Has anyone heard of the vector space model before? Right, good. Has anyone heard the bag of words? Maybe someone worked with text. Okay, awesome. So it's along the same lines. So the idea was is to represent actually every player in an n-dimensional vector space, and the vector space formed by the features of the quests that we analyze, right? And how do we find similar players, right? So those of you who might have worked with text mining before, you know it probably the cosine similarity, which is the normalized dot product between two players. So this actually led us to our first recommender system, which was purely based on the pure data itself. And we actually used a tensor representation here, actually to categorize every game aspect, right? So we had about 7 aspects, like for each quest, like level, strategy, damage, accuracy, agility, time, and health. And every matrix here, or every slice of the tensor, is a player by quest matrix, right? So you combine these bipartite matrices, they form a tensor. And the way we calculated that similarity between two given users is by a normalized weighted cosine similarity, as you see here. So I'll point out to that, right? So we define a stochastic vector for the importance of each slice, right? So the importances can vary between aspects. So the problem with this recommender sort of system is that players are almost similar if they had played the exact games very similarly, right? So they must really play the exact same games so that they are close together in that space. And this is very limiting because we have procedural generated 85,000 games, and the likelihood that you will play the exact same games in the exact same way is very low. And actually, we're going to see the results weren't that good. One solution is to use latent factor models. Matrix factorization is a very famous one. This is our second data-driven recommender. So shortly about matrix factorization, the idea is to factorize a matrix into a combination of two low-rank matrices, right? So if we are given a telemetry by player data couple matrix, the idea is that we come up with a concept matrix, which we can call C, and a player coefficient matrix, which we can call P, right? And the K here is the rank of the matrix, which is usually smaller than M and N, like number of players and number of features we have. We can obtain that with singular value decomposition, right? By just taking the square root of the singular value matrix and assign the left-hand side to be the C, of course truncated, and the right-hand side to be the P, right? And the most interesting aspect of matrix factorization, in my opinion, right, together with recommender systems, is the dimensionality reduction, right? Because you can represent every player, let's call it here, player vector xi, by multiplying the content matrix P by the lower dimensional coefficient vector Pi, right? And you can actually do then, our second recommender works with the PIs, right, with the coefficient matrices. So we individually factorize every slice of the tensor that I just showed you, like in this case. So we construct a player coefficient tensor, and we exactly use the same similarity measure to find similar players and make our recommendations, right? So what is the but here? There's always a but. So that, we can, the motivation here is that we see that we actually factorize every slice individually, right? So there is no, although like these are in reality, every slice belongs to the same players, we treat them individually, right? And there is a better way to do that, so that we can learn actually global player representations. And that actually led us to our third recommender system, which is the last, I promise. It's about tensor factorization. So the main idea is to learn two global matrices. So given a tensor y here, you'll learn two global basis matrices and one coefficient tensor. They're all like, of course, lower ranked than the whole tensor itself. And this can be obtained with, by using an alternative least square approach, which actually we derived in the paper. The algorithm is extremely simple to implement and super robust because it just relies on matrix addition, matrix multiplication, and single value composition only. So no inverses or nothing. So also numerically very stable. But before I go to the algorithm, let's just see what is the objective function we're minimizing here. It's the sum of the residual sum of squares for each of the slices, right? So we can represent every slice by multiplying A with the corresponding coefficient matrix and B transpose. So here's how the algorithm looks like. Again, like Mika, I couldn't do it for the artifact evaluation, so I just put it online yesterday. So you can download it from the tiny URL, if you can read it. It's RTDD code, tiny URL, RTDD code. If you have questions, just ask me as well, get on an email. So the main idea of the algorithm is that you randomly initialize. I forgot to tell you this. So this algorithm works for column orthonormal A and B. So we constrain A and B to contain orthonormal vectors, right? And we don't constrain W. So that's why we have to initialize orthonormal A and B, right? Initialize any W. And until we have we have to define a stopping condition. Until that stopping condition is met, we update A, right? As you see here, we have to just take the SVD of some matrices. Same for B, and the update of W is super easy because it's just a matrix regression with the factors being orthogonal. So as I said, you can download the code. I'll have the link again at the end. So how can we build a recommender system out of that, right? So in F3, we can just factorize again our aspect tensor, so to say, what we see on the left, and that is going to give us then A matrix and B matrix and the coefficients. So we're going to then actually combine the coefficients and the player factor matrix to form yet another tensor, and again we use our composite cosine similarity to find similar players for the recommendations. In a nutshell, these are the inputs. So the neighborhood actually uses the whole data as an input. The matrix factorization uses the individually factored coefficients as an input, and the tensor factorization uses the multiplication of the coefficients with the player factor matrix. So let's talk about our online evaluation. So we made a online bucket testing evaluation. So our goal was to predict, to actually recommend players the right quest out of the 85,000 quests. So we had more than 240K players, right? And almost 130 actually finished the game, finished the tutorial, sorry. So we had a tutorial period just to get the sense of how the players are. And we selected about 25,000 for our online bucket testing. We evaluated the baseline, which was in our case the random, just recommending random quests. We had a handcrafted content-based recommender, which was extremely complex at the end, and we ended up not using it. So, and the data-driven recommenders I just said. As evaluation metrics, we use retention and intercession time, failure rate, and abandonment rate. So the average weekly retention was the best for our matrix factorization, for our tensor factorization method, which was followed by the rule-based. And as you see, the neighborhood-oriented, the one that uses the pure data, was actually the worst after the baseline. When we analyzed average intercession times, the tensor factorization model was actually the best. The failure rate, the matrix factorization was the best, and tensor factorization was the second. So this was like together with the retention results indicated that like the tensor factorization recommenders or the recommendations made by tensor factorization weren't that easy, but actually more engaging, right? And that was what validated when we analyzed the abandonment rate, which was the best again for the tensor factorization. So in summary, tensor factorization, as we saw, its performance. It reduced the expert involvement, right? Because we had the algorithm, right? It was straightforward to implement. You can check the code. And it didn't require extensive tuning because it just has 2 parameters. And to get it running, all we need is just data. Thank you. So just for you to know, this is the code here. If you want to know it. Yes, please.
Cool talk, thank you. Pretty incredible numbers. So on one slide, it said that you generated 85,000 quests.
Exactly.
I guess the quests that you recommended. What were these quests like? Like how much did they vary from one another?
They actually varied in terms of difficulty, right? So
Okay.
the seed was the difficulty and a random sort of number. So the number of monsters that we kill and how difficult they are, and how fast they move. And so they were a couple of parameters, which was then all put together to generate this base data set.
Okay, but each quest was about like killing an X or Y number of monsters.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
collecting crystals and
Okay.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Hi, thanks for the talk. So, were these quests generated for the experiments, or is that that's how the game works?
No, exactly. So, I mean, that was like an end product, right? So
Yeah.
we generated them, or they generated them, the company. So, and that was it. So you have only 85,000 quests, only. So, exactly. And then you start playing, you play the tutorial, and based on how you perform in the tutorial, right? So you are then one of these slices in these tensor, right? And then we recommend you based on how the others played the quests that you should play.
Right. I was just wondering if, if you're going to generate 85,000 quests, maybe you could just